Hello, my friends, and welcome to the 1 year anniversary special for InnoVision 3D. Yes, it's been a year since I uploaded my very first video that launched the whole channel, and of course by that I mean the anniversary was actually last week, and I'm late in uploading this, but I figured that's kinda on brand for the channel, so here we are. So I've been thinking for a while about how to commemorate the anniversary, and I always thought it'd be fun to tie it into the theme of the original episode about Rainforest Cafe and themed dining. And I initially wanted to go to a Rainforest Cafe and film my experience there and compare and contrast my experience since I haven't been to Rainforest Cafe in about 10 years or so and talk about what it's like now. And unfortunately, due to the panini still going on, and then jobs reopening and getting my job back, and then breaking my foot, I just didn't have time. So instead, a friend of mine suggested, well, why don't you do a commentary about the episode, where you can talk about what inspired you to make it, and what you had to leave out, and, the process behind it. And I was like, wow, that's a great idea. And then I realized I had to actually watch my video in order to do that. And I don't know about other creators, but I despise watching my own content, especially the old stuff. I just overanalyze it and nitpick all the mistakes in it. And when I upload something to YouTube, it's up there. I may watch it once or twice to make sure it's working, and then I move on. I just kind of try and forget about it. And that's kind of the blessing and the curse with this episode in particular, because it being my first one, I think it's the weakest of the bunch. I'm still kind of figuring out how to do the editing process. My audio is terrible in it. I'm not sure all the jokes land. The script's kind of weak. Again, that's just me. But at the same time, it happens to be the most notable video. It's the one that caught on for some whatever reason. And I guess maybe that's just the power of Rainforest Cafe, is it's this great equalizer that everyone has a memory of it. At least a lot of Americans have a memory of it, it seems. And I think that's because it's in this perfect niche of like commercialized nostalgia, where we're at that 30-year mark from when it first premiered, and it was prevalent enough that you found it kind of in all major cities, and we all remember being traumatized by the thunder or throwing coins at the crocodile, and it just kind of summed up this whole experience. And I'm forever grateful that this video caught on and did well. I'm just still kind of embarrassed about it because I don't know if it is the best example of the content I put forth, but anyway, that's just me. So before I do get into the actual commentary of the video, I do want to just provide a very brief, backstory of why I started the channel. And a year ago, like most people in the world, I suddenly found myself out of employment. And there was no sign of imminent employment. So I was like, well, I have to do something with my time and stay creative and be worthwhile. So I figured, why not go into YouTube? Why not try video editing? I've always really admired all the video essayists on YouTube and what they're capable of and how they can do everything on their own creativity and their own budget. And I figured, well, why not give it a shot? Worst case, it just doesn't work out and I can laugh about this down the road. And I definitely underestimated the amount of work that it takes. I know my Rainforest episode took me about 60 to 70 hours between script writing to final editing, with about 40 of those being just editing itself over about a month. But I had nothing but time, so I guess it worked out. I'd say now a typical video takes about 4 to 5 days on and off, with about 3 days dedicated of editing and about 20 hours total. So at least it's getting better. But with that said, I didn't know what I wanted to talk about. I come from a theme park background, I have a theme park job, and I just figured there's so many millennial male white voices in the theme park community and on YouTube especially. They don't need me in the mix because I'm not sure what I can add. But I still wanted to talk something of that entertainment nature because it's what I know. And it wasn't until I was having dinner with my fiance and she was like, whatever happened to Rainforest Cafe? And I stopped and I was like, yeah. Whatever did happen to Rainforest Cafe? Because at least for us on the West Coast, they were everywhere. There was San Francisco, Los Angeles, downtown Disney, and then all of a sudden, they just disappeared. Over the span of like 5 years, they're all gone now. I mean, the one in downtown Disney is like a Star Wars store, and then the other one's pieced out in the early 2000s or mid 2000s. And I know there's still some left. I think there's like 24, 25. I say in the video how many there is. And I know everyone in the comments really wants to make sure we know they're still there. I know Galveston, Texas, man. Everyone wants to know that Rainforest is there. And of course, like the Disney Springs ones in Florida. Anyway, I was like, well, that's really interesting how they just were kind of a flash in the pan, but they survived for a while. And as I was doing the research, I realized, it's not just Rainforest. There was a whole genre of themed restaurants out there, with Bubba Gumps and everything else. And I didn't realize how far back their history stretched, because once I got to an article about the French death cafes and everything, I was like, wow, this thing's been going on for practically centuries. And I remember getting to the sentence in that article where it was like, Satan would chase patrons around the restaurant with his pitchfork. And I was like, this is it. I have to talk about this. This is so weird. I love it. And then that's kind of where the episode went. And overall, I am happy with the episode. I do wish, my main regret with it, I would say before we get into it, is that I don't talk about Rainforest Cafe as much as I probably should, with it being the title and the focal point. And especially since Rainforest Cafe has an interesting origin story where its creator was making the animatronics in his basement and had the fish tanks there and stuff. And especially I think that's more interesting than just like movie happens, so we made restaurant to cash in on it. So if I ever do remaster the episode or remake it, I would definitely put in more of Rainforest Cafe's specific history, because it is interesting, and it's kind of a bummer I don't get into it. Now, before we do get into it, I do want to apologize, because I am going to be doing this a little off the cuff. I am just going to turn it on and watch in real time, so these are my real reactions to it, and I promise not to be too, yikes, I was super cringy back then. With that also said, I also apologize for the ums, likes, and ands. Feel free to do a count and let me know in the comments. I'm not going to be my typical eloquent self, since this isn't a written script, but, I figured doing a real reaction is kind of fun for the anniversary and a little different. So I guess without any further ado, let's get started. Rainforest Cafe. So I knew the script wasn't strong enough to just start off right off the bat, especially with those who weren't familiar with Rainforest Cafe, so I wanted to introduce it with a commercial. And there were a couple PBS special commercials, but they weren't that fun, and I was looking for something really kitschy to help get the theme across. And then I came across this video on YouTube, and as soon as they get to exotic, I was like, oh man, this is perfect. I have to include this, because honestly, look, I love Rainforest Cafe, and I don't think that comes across clear enough in this video. I do too many yuck, the food was gross jokes, but I genuinely loved Rainforest Cafe, and I genuinely miss it. But it is not exotic. It is the farthest thing from exotic, which is kind of its appeal, It is kitschy, it is gimmicky. There are just random fish tanks and talking trees and the Santa hat wearing gorillas. But I think that's part of the fun. You can't find that anywhere else. It's like a theme park gone mad. And then, you have the yikes on the... Let me pause. You have the yikes on the menu here, which, honestly, that was more for the title of tribal cheesecake, because I don't think any tribe is known for their cheesecake, all those upper New York tribes. So it's just the way they try and get the theming across in some ways is interesting. And then, you get Atlas with rescuing the rainforest, though I guess some of their proceeds do go to the rainforest, so that's kind of fun. And Rainforest Cafe is what it is. If I wanted to do real commentary about it, I could talk about how it's kind of commercialized and, it's gimmicky and that's bad and touristy and you don't like tourists. But, that's the appeal. I don't mind that sometimes. You know what you're getting when you get to it. And it's expensive, but that's kind of the shtick. And it obviously worked. Up until it didn't. Oh, geez, Joe Exotic. Yeah, definitely dated the video there. I don't know, it was 2020, I wanted to be topical. And you get the Rainforest Cafe in Animal Kingdom there. That one is still open, and most people don't know about that one, that Disney World has 2 Rainforest Cafes, including one right in front of the restaurant. In fact, their owner, Landry's, runs the Yak and Yeti restaurant inside the park too, which is honestly much better food than Rainforest Cafe, and I do recommend it. Alright, here we go. Truth, Beauty, Freedom, and Lunch. So that's a play on the Truth, Beauty, Freedom, Love from Moulin Rouge. There's Moulin Rouge. I figured that's kind of a fun way to introduce modern audiences to this region of Paris if they're not familiar with it. And I like being topical, it's kind of fun. Oh yeah, and yes, it's Amelie. I know, Amelie. It's not Amelie. I don't know why I said it. I did do a correction and I just forgot to include it. I'm a musical theater major. I should know this. Once again, Amelie. I apologize. That was my bad.
Great literature and musical.
And then Les Mis. And that's the thing with the Paris cafes. I only talk about a handful of them. By my understanding, there was like 50 of them at one point across the whole city. They were the fad back in the day. And all of them were super, super crazy. There was like a Tunnel of Love one, and there was a monkey one, and there was the Louis the 13th one, and the one with the dead bodies in the coffin. Those were fake. But apparently the bones and the skeletons chandeliers were real, which is super dark and goth, and I 100% would have eaten there. Like, I love that. I kind of wish they'd come back minus the real human remains. But like, look how detailed that architecture is. You just don't really see that anymore. And it's super cool that there was so much artistry put in for such wacky and wild themes, that it was all tongue-in-cheek and satire, but they cared a lot about it. I mean, that's kind of like the whole bohemian culture, is that mix of art and camp. And then here, let me pause. You get the Pepper's Ghost effect, which for those that have been on the Haunted Mansion Disneyland, that's how they work in the ballroom. Everyone knows that. It's not holograms, yada, 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 but it's an old theater trick. And it actually, they used it in the restaurants occasionally as well to show the ghosts and the devil. And again, just really clever how on a budget they were able to do all these special effects. And yes, St. Peter baptizing people, like, that's just, it's so wacky. And I don't know if it could ever land today, but if there was ever a resurgence, I would love to see these come back. And yes, the British have to come and steal anything, because either they put a flag in it or they steal it. That was their thing at that time. And then, yeah, the American ones weren't really that special. I like the original Cat Cafe. Yep, great French there. Really nailed that. And yeah, it was just pictures of cats on the wall. And that's kind of fun because it plays into the future real cat cafes. And then you have the pneumatic architecture, which, yeah, you see all over Hollywood, and even like Hollywood's, Hoot Hoot Ice Cream. This was, let me pause. This was one of my favorite things I found about it, because it's terrifying. Like, it is so bizarre that it was an ice cream stand. It reminds me of those like 1920s and 30s Halloween cards or creepy holiday cards with the babies and things, that they are meant to be endearing, but it's actually kind of terrifying. And I'm really glad this is caught on and everyone else finds it as delightfully humorous as I do, because I get such a kick out of this. Like, I would 100% wear a t-shirt with this owl that says Hoot Hoot Ice Cream on this. So someone get on that. You at least got one from me. Oh, the Hollywood Studios one with Gertie the Dinosaur. Now, Gertie was one of the first, if not the first, animated feature or short of all time. So that's why he's there in the park. But they also play off of like the Brown Derby architecture. Oh, let me pause. So I went to Clifton's back in 2017, 2018, and it was really cool. I mean, it was like diner, cafeteria food. I mean, it is a cafeteria technically, but they have the giant redwoods and a river running through it and tons of taxidermied animals. And I'm getting mixed messages of it's either still open, it's either closed now. Again, this was during the pandemic. I don't know if it survived. I do know they just opened their own tiki bar in it, like themed to a shipwreck. So I really hope it's open still. It would be a shame if it wasn't. If it is, I definitely would go back. And I do recommend just checking it out because it's very unique. You don't normally see a wood themed restaurant. It's kind of like the ETQ in Orlando, Florida. It feels like that. So the tiki bars. So most of this information I got from a book by a man named Martin Cate, who runs his own tiki bar in San Francisco named Smuggler's Cove. He has another one as well. And his book details the history of tiki bars and includes all the original drink recipes from like Trader Vic's and Don the Beachcomber. And I highly recommend it because personally, I really like tiki culture. It reminds me of, like the tiki room in Disneyland. So I'm nostalgic for it, even though I didn't grow up with it. And this one with the boat here is the Tonga Room in San Francisco. Again, I'm pulling from a lot of West Coast examples because this is what I experienced firsthand. But this one, it actually has a rainstorm in the middle of the lagoon every 15 minutes and the boat comes back and forth. And that does predate the Tiki Room. So I'm just saying, Walt might have been inspired there. And I totally get, it's not great. It does appropriate Polynesian culture and stuff, but I still do have a soft spot for it, if not only for the Disney connections. Oh, geez. Sambo's. Yeah, and then the Aunt Jemima, a lot of people not happy about Jemima, but, it was topical at the time. It was like the Land O'Lakes girl, and it kind of sums up what we're going to talk about. Okay, so Sambo's. I think I cover Sambo's a little too much in this episode. I think it overshadows the rest of it. I think it should have been a separate thing. It still plays into the whole themed restaurant story, but not this much. And I definitely harp on its controversial elements maybe more than I should without actually making a hard stance. So I feel like I don't commit to one, but I also kind of waffle on the other. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I wasn't really happy with the way I handled this. I was trying to be more topical than maybe this subject should, and I don't think I did it justice in the best way. Because, I mean, there is a conversation worth having here, especially growing up knowing and studying, minstrel shows and everything in college. It is directly inspired by that, but at the same time, there's the whole thing of, were these people being directly stereotypical and prejudiced and racist, or was it just happened to be that way? And it's a very odd history, but I think the main takeaway here and why I included this was it's important to show that these problems and these prejudices can manifest in the most innocuous of scenarios and settings, like a themed restaurant. Oh yeah, Bioworks. Which I'm not insinuating Bioworks did anything wrong. It just was a really weird connection I happened to come across, and I'm like, the Disney geeks will get a kick out of that. And as author of Sambo, but yeah, you don't think theme restaurants could be problematic or cause controversy, and yet they do. Like here with the Sambo's mask, like I think that kind of sums it up. That's bad. Like you shouldn't be giving those out, and especially since the owners would then double down on it and kind of feign ignorance. That may have not been your original intent, but when you acknowledge it and then deny it, that becomes a separate issue. And you shouldn't give out masks like that. Like, I don't know. And then you get the It's a Small World Mary Blair knockoff mascot here, and it's slightly better, but at the same time not. And just, again, I think this deserved an entire separate episode where I could delve into it. But again, I was just starting off, and I got so washed up into the whole controversy and fascinated by it that I think it overpowers and overshadows the rest of the episode. The other main takeaway here is I want to show that the quote-unquote woke culture of today, such as it is, didn't just start in the past 5-10 years with millennials and Gen Z. It had been going on for a long time. Even going back to the 60s and 70s, people were calling out this company about this. And I think it's important to show that, yeah, some things have been bad for a really long time. Yes, that's very good. Oh, yeah, wait for it. Civil rights groups and indignant consumers. You see, yeah, okay, so that audio, indignant consumers, is the worst. But it was 11 o'clock, like the day before I wanted to upload it. I was exhausted by that point. I recorded it just off my laptop. It's super bad. I would never do it again. But at that point, I was like, I'm delirious. I need to pronounce this word correctly. I need to just get it out there. So, again, there's a couple spots throughout the episode. Oh, yeah, the first Office reference. It just came to mind. This is a fun little tradition for me. I put an Office thing in each episode because I love the show. I don't know if I'll continue that tradition forever, but for right now, I keep thinking of quotes that fit, so I'm like, yeah, let's go with it. R.I.P. Baker Squares. I don't know if anyone else had a Baker Square, but they were big around us. For those that don't know, they were like a Marie Callender's. And for those that don't know what Marie Callender's, that's like a Denny's. Oh god, all these places are shutting down. And yeah, they did change the name. It's Chad's now, which is one of the original owners' names. So they did make a conscious effort this past year to help change it. And I think it was also important to show that this story isn't done. Unfortunately, this commercial is also not done, which I happened to just come across this, and I was like, man, that brownie's so pathetic, and that mask is so weird, and that tiger mascot is going to haunt my dreams. I have to include it. It's so nostalgically bizarre, like the Rainforest Cafe video, or commercial. I was like, this is too much fun not to include. Oh, good question. How does it get it? Here, let's watch me desperately try and tie these ends together here. And that's the thing. Sambo's definitely has a part in the story. Like I said, it just wasn't the only one. And it kind of I put all the 60s and 70s in Sambo, and that wasn't fair. Because you do get other things like a bunch of steakhouses, and then fast food like Froster Freeze, or Jack in the Box. And those were also important in getting a more approachable themed restaurant in order to get there. Mel's, like Bob's Big Boys, was another one. Oh yeah, and then I don't think exploitation's the right word. I shouldn't have said that. I should have said inspired. But there's one for ladies, there's one for guys, there's one for everyone now. So everyone's getting equal opportunity in those themed restaurants. So take it as you will. I don't know how much longer those will last. We'll see. Oh, Casa Bonita, Blue Bayou, yeah, classic. This is also the part of the video where everyone's like, well, what about this? What about that? And yeah, I'm sorry. I know I gloss over a lot. Oh, there is Big Boys. I included it. But I don't know. It just never came up. There's one, Bugaboo Creek. Everyone was like, where's Bugaboo Creek? I need Bugaboo Creek. And I looked it up, and I'm really bummed I missed it because it had like a talking tree and a moose head. Like, it was great. It was like the Country Bears, basically. And I'm bummed that one got overlooked, unfortunately, because it was one of the cooler ones. So I apologize if there's a bunch of original themed restaurants. This is a huge genre, way bigger than I expected, and it gets kind of lost. Now, the reason I include Chuck E. Cheese here, let me pause, is because it's the first notable of this kind of restaurant. It is the first that included the animatronics, the pizza, the arcade. And with that, it also inspired its own subgenre of restaurant. And I know Showbiz was also doing it at the same time, but you look at it and you have like Bullwinkle's now, which I actually went to as a kid. And that was super cool because you had like Dudley Do-Right and Bullwinkle shows. That was great. And then it had even like Dave and Buster's is like the adult version of this, which it's hard to classify that as a theme. It's like arcades and consumerism isn't really a theme, but at the same time, in the 80s, it counted because it had never been done before. And I also wanted to mention that like Chuck E. Cheese was going through a lot of stuff when I was making this video. And again, the story isn't finished. Oh god, the quality of some of these clips. I really was guessing on how to work Final Cut. I get it now, but I do apologize. The quality of some of these clips are a little painful. Vegas. Yeah. So Vegas, again, is kind of tangential, but when you look at over-the-top theming, Vegas takes the cake because it starts with the Oasis and the Tropicana and everything, and then it just moves from there. And especially since it's really interesting. I mean, Disney Imagineers helped create a lot of Vegas. Bob Gurr did the Pirate Show. Roger Broggie, the first Imagineer, did the animatronics for the Atlantis show. Like, it has its strong roots in the theme park industry and therefore the themed restaurant industry. I mean, that's what they're all trying to evoke. And especially in the 90s, they wanted to be a family place and put in a bunch of family rides. And I'm not sure they were successful, but at least for me as a kid in the 90s, I distinctly remember going to a Rainforest Cafe in the MGM Grand. And yeah, I get the date wrong on Hollywood. I get the date wrong on the MGM Grand theme park. Again, these are all little mistakes that I just glossed over. I wasn't really 100% on the script that I wouldn't do now. So there you go. They were there. And that there's a reason why all these themed restaurants are in Vegas. They just go hand in hand. Again, there's a Cheesecake Factory just behind this show. Like, if that's not the quintessential Vegas scope, I mean, throw in a couple slot machines and there it is. This restaurant was actually really cool. It's closed now. Let me pause. This restaurant was really cool because it changed while you were dining. The ceiling opened up, the walls would move, and it became like 3 separate restaurants while you were eating. It didn't move or anything. You didn't move. It didn't rotate or anything, but everything morphed around you. And unfortunately, it's not open anymore, but still, really cool idea. It was in the Wynn, I think. And then, yeah, you get the Star Trek experience, which I'm broken record, but I went to as a kid, but I was so afraid of getting beamed up to the Enterprise, I wouldn't let my parents go on. So sorry about that, Mom and Dad. I owe you one. And now it's not open. A couple things do still remain. Like, you have the gondolas. You have a couple of the shows still. There's remnants of these gimmicks. Oh, FAO Schwartz. Yeah, shameless plug. Did a future episode. Go watch it. I'm really proud of it. That one's a good one. For me, if anything, FAO Schwartz was more nostalgic than Rainforest. That was my playland as a kid. I was obsessed with the one in San Francisco. That was so cool. We never bought anything because we couldn't afford it, but super fun to just visit. And that's the thing. There are tons of videos about Vegas experiences out there, each individual one. And I may do one that kind of puts them all together because I haven't seen that. But I mean, Vegas could be its own topic. Oh, yeah, the apples. Oh, it's so good. What are you doing with that? Oh, it's so funny. I just happened to find that clip, and I was like, I have to include this, and I'm really glad that like Hoot Hoot Ice Cream landed with so many people because it just makes me bust up each time. This weird tree that like I know it's in the movie, but you don't think of it. And then yeah, the Rainforest Cafe was right across from the Wizard of Oz, so it just goes hand in hand there. I will say, now that I'm talking about Rainforest Cafe in the video, I really wish I covered the one that has the boat ride in it. And I'm pretty sure it's the one in Texas. I didn't know about it then. I didn't find a video in time. But there is a Rainforest Cafe that has like a boat ride in its basement through a jungle with animatronics. And it's so cool. Oh, Legends of the Hidden Temple there. And I think that like is peak Rainforest Cafe. Yeah, it's not the Northwest. Sorry, it's the Midwest. I should have said Midwest. I don't know why I didn't. That was me. And then yeah, Bubba Gumps. What's funny? The Bubba Gumps guy made me remember. People that are in these videos are commenting saying, "Hey, that was me as a kid. Oh, I know the Bubba Gump guy." And I think it's really cool. Hopefully, they're not mad that I use the videos. Like, I'm not saying anything bad about them, but I think it's really cool that like people are all connected and we're all like immortalized with Rainforest Cafe now. I don't know. It's just the internet is a wild, wild place, man. Yep. Bubba Gumps. And that's the other thing is, I know I really crap on the rainforest food, and maybe it's because of the price. I get that's part of it. And again, I haven't been in a while. I don't know if the food's that great, but I have been to Bubba Gumps like 2-3 years ago. I went to the one at City Walk, and it's just not that great. I don't know. Again, maybe it's the price, but it's kind of like a Long John Silver's. Like, oh, that's another one I could have talked about. It just, I don't know. It's not that special for the price. You go for the atmosphere. That's the whole point of these things. No one's like, man, I must eat at medieval times. I love me those legs, those quail legs. So it's part of the gimmick. It's like Margaritaville. You go for the drinks. You go for the volcano. You know, Jimmy Buffett's not really known for his food, though Cheeseburger in Paradise was good. Oh, Planet Hollywood, Hard Rock, and all of these are still open. These are all in Disney Springs and City Walks and stuff, and I think that shows the importance of going towards a tourist destination. That's how you survive. Because Dive was one that didn't survive, and I went to both of them, and I was convinced I was diving into submarine, but I remember a lot of people there were confused because they wanted it to be a Beatles restaurant with the yellow submarine, and it wasn't. And I just don't think in metropolitan cities, people that live there would go. It has to be heavy tourist destinations. And again, here's a whole list of a bunch, and I'm sorry if your favorite one is not included. Again, I just picked top ones that came to mind. Safe House is one I really want to visit because you need a password to get in. And then you can send like secret messages through tubes, and it's the mom and pop one-off restaurants that I think are really special because yeah, you can find a Rainforest Cafe pretty much everywhere, or at least you could, but Safe House, there's one, maybe two in America, let alone the world, and I think that's just super unique that they built it from the ground up and there's just one in existence. Like, that's just super fun to me, that very indie style of restauranting, which you'll see in the pop-up bars that we're about to get to. And then yeah, the recession. Who knew? Recession killed everything. It's like with FAO, how 9/11 stopped tourism. It's just, it takes out everything and you just see it permeate so many different genres. Let alone we get things like Olive Garden. Now I know people say SNL's not funny anymore. I still think it's pretty funny at times. This is one of my favorite skits. And I knew I had to include it with Olive Garden because when we're here, we're breadsticks, you know? And Olive Garden, again, like Rainforest, is like the quintessential, almost themed suburban restaurant. Again, I can't speak globally, but at least here in the States, you get your Olive Garden, you get your Red Lobsters, you get your Chili's. Oh, 2 Office clips here. Wow, I was really cashing those in. You get your Claim Jumpers, RIP, your Chevys, like... Those, I feel like, are even more iconic now than Rainforest because they're still around and they're still everywhere. Everyone had them in their basic suburban community. At least I think so. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here. Oh yeah, Bowling for Soup, right? Super random. I mean, nostalgic now, I suppose, but... And that's why I had to include the Phineas and Ferb love handle joke. Though I could have included the Chez Platypus restaurant joke as well, but, you know... Gotta throw some love to Phineas and Ferb. And yeah, Cheesecake Factory is technically a theme. There was a really funny article that was making the rounds on Cheesecake Factory where they talked about, let me pause, where they talk about how it's this like horrific amalgamation of themes, and there's like the Eye of Sauron lamps and stuff. I don't remember where it was from, but I always thought that really summed up, because Cheesecake Factory is one of the strangest themes, because it's not themed and it is themed, and the menu, like the menu itself, not the food, is the main attraction, and it has advertisements in it. Like, I don't know. It just, Cheesecake Factory always baffles me every time I'm there. Good cheesecake, though. Yeah, and yeah, Hard Rock Margaritaville, they're still taking strong. There's Forrest Gump. They're doing, Bubba Gumpster's doing well. And there it is. There it is. I'm going to pause. There it is. I say like 24 Rainforest Cafe, so it does exist. So haha, you're still there. No idea if it's still accurate. I know when I released it, one of the first big hits I got on this video was a radio station in Chicago was shared my video because their Rainforest Cafe closed in the downtown, and they were like, oh, look at this video, and I was like, wow, that's super cool you found it. So I know the Chicago one is out, but I don't know if any reopened or that. And I do know that I think there's one in London still. Like, they're around, they're just not as prolific as they were before. And that just really seems to be they expanded too quick, too fast. You know, it's the same song, different verse kind of deal. Been to T-Rex before. It's cute. It ain't Jurassic Park, but the kids love it. They have a little Build-A-Bear dinosaur. Like, if I was 5 or 6, I would eat that up. They have a meteor shower instead of a rainstorm. And then you get the theme parks. That was the Sci-Fi Drive-In from Hollywood. That's Oga's Cantina, 3 Broomsticks. So I think, again, if you do theme dining at a theme park, it works because people are expecting it. They're okay spending a little more. They're on vacation. It'll entertain the kids. And you don't lose the theming if you can't go in the park for that day. Jurassic Fork. Yeah, who knew all these pop culture references love themed restaurants, and really obscure ones too, which is fun. And then, of course, you got the Goofy Goobers, which was takeoff of Chuck E. Cheese or Farrell's. And then, let me pause. That was The Middleman. That was a ABC TV show, only ran for 1 season or so. Great show. Love that show. May do a future episode about it. But they had the booty chest that they would always reference, was their pirate-themed restaurant and bar. And then, of course, you have the brand new DuckTales R.I.P., gone too soon. But again, a Chuck E. Cheese takeoff as well. Cafe 80s from Back to the Future, which I always wish Universal Studios made. I mean, I get why they didn't, but it would have been fun. That needs more rep. And then, yes, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt with Titus's Spooky Laboratory. And then, yeah, Beetle House. I mean, a lot of these are still in existence. And again, it's interesting how franchises and movie studios are getting in on the fad and doing little pop-up ones that are only here for a couple weeks and then gone. Unfortunately, Rillaroo closed, which is a shame. And then, yeah, Game of Thrones, because why not? Game of Thrones is totally known for their food, right? And yeah, Lost Spirits I really want to go to because they have a boat ride in it and a carousel, and that's just a distillery. That's just for drinking. It's not even a restaurant, but it's so cool seeing these homegrown restaurants and bars really embrace it. There's one in Anaheim, the Blind Rabbit, which is a speakeasy that has a secret entrance. Like, there's just a lot of cool, tiny hole-in-the-wall places out there. And then Japan and Taiwan are their own animal. And I say the wrong country for the toilet one. I apologize. The Alice in Wonderland one, and then, yeah, the Cabaret of Hell, like, and Death, and then, yeah, Cat and Dogs. I don't talk about it, but the French cafes did have one with live animals in it. I don't remember what animals, so I think it was like a ferret in there or something. It was cool. But it really plays and comes into full circle of where it started and where it currently is at. And that's the bottom line. Is the reason I wanted to pick this, not only was it interesting, but I loved Rainforest Cafe. I mean, that crocodile, who did not throw a coin in that crocodile's mouth? Like, so much. It's iconic. And yeah, the lightning still scares me, not gonna lie. This isn't me, but apparently one of the kids was like, oh, that was me as a kid. And I'm like, thank you, I am not alone for being traumatized. Like, I could not go to anywhere. We went to a Chevy's and I was like, when's the thunder gonna happen? Like, my parents were so annoyed with me for years. Anyway, it was so much fun, and I feel like maybe I didn't sell that enough in the video, but it is gimmicky, it is expensive, but it's so unique, it's so kitschy and fun that it will never be repeated. Oh, and this map, let me pause. This map is a joke. it came from Twitter in like the week before I was going to upload the video, and I know it's a joke. I'm sorry. I guess it didn't come across. Half of those aren't in those states, like in and out and stuff. And then yeah, Colorado clearly doesn't love Rainforest Cafe. I just thought it was too funny not to include, and I thought it'd be relevant and more people would know it, and no one knew it. So yeah, joke. I don't think Colorado even had a Rainforest Cafe. If they did, it's long gone. So that's the story behind the map. But yeah, I honestly hope this chain has a resurgence. I hope theme dining continues to go on because it's so unique. And yeah, it's commercial, but you know, everything's commercial nowadays. And it's such a cool way to explore creativity and style and just have fun while eating. I don't know, I have a very strong soft spot for both Rainforest Cafe and the restaurants. It's a lot of fun. Wow, I think that did it. That wasn't too bad. I don't know if I can say that. Like, I apologize for being egotistical, but it wasn't as terrible as I thought. I was a little afraid that it would be a little painful, but that actually was kind of fun. Again, I may do another one of these in the future where I remaster the episode because I think there's a lot more I could talk about in themed restaurants and dining, and especially Rainforest Cafe. So maybe down the line in a couple years from now, when the restaurant industry has fully come back and there's a new resurgence, I think it's still a story worth telling, let alone everything I missed. But yeah, that was kind of fun. Thank you everyone for not only joining me on this, but joining me for the last year, for watching these videos, for helping me reach a 1 year anniversary. I mean, when I started this, I did not expect any of this to catch on or be interesting or people to be caring about it. And I am so humbled and grateful that people seem to genuinely like this stuff, and you care about the same things I care about, like restaurants and things. It helps me feel better that other people are still interested in this kind of stuff. Before I do go, a couple quick announcements. We have a Patreon now. Yay, Patreon. Do not feel obligated to join, but if you do, got a couple really exciting perks. We have 2 Patreon exclusive series coming up. The first is e-ticket rankings, where I'm going to rank all the attractions at each of the Disney and other theme parks and talk about my experience working them and being on them and riding them, all that fun stuff. And then I'm also going to be doing a new one called What If, and it's going to be kind of like an armchair Imagineering thing where I talk about, rather than rides that could be, existing rides and how they could be different. So again, it's not complete just Imagineering. I'm not really going down that route, but it's going to be fun. So those are both on Patreon, and then a lot of exclusive posts and things, and you can start as low as $1 a month. I'm not going to plug it anymore because I hate plugging. But again, if you do like what you see, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe. I don't know, ring the bell. It's YouTube stuff. You know the drill. And finally, next episode, because this was a fun little bonus episode that, I just wanted to throw together. Next episode should hopefully be up next week, and I'm really excited for it. It's another theme park theory because I like rotating through the history of theme park theory and what's the score. And this one is going to be the most experimental video I think I've ever done. It requires some audience participation, so we'll see if it works. It is about and covers some of my all-time favorite Disney and other theme park rides. So I'm really excited. I hope it works. I hope you like it, and I hope I can finish it. I should probably get to that. So again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much over the past year for supporting the channel and watching it. I really hope you enjoy it. I'm going to keep doing my best. Feel free to comment what you want to see more. Especially patrons get direct access to comment future topics, but feel free to comment too, and I just might look at it on here. And yeah, I'm not really sure how to end it, so I guess I'll just say I will see you all a little later.